I am going to go over how to create your own Docassemble instance on AWS, Amazon Web Services. So first things first, we're going to go to aws.amazon.com to create our new EC2 instance. We'll sign into the console. And I'm using my own account to run this demo, but you'll be using obviously a different account. So let's go ahead and sign in. The service we're going to be using to run this is called EC2. Amazon has pretty much everything that you could ever want to do, but for this we're just going to stick with EC2. So we'll go up here to Services, go to EC2 under Compute, and that'll bring up our EC2 Dashboard. This is our EC2 dashboard. If you have running instances, you can see what's going on with them and how they're running. But for this, we're going to go and create a new one. So go down to Launch Instance and walk through these menus. Amazon offers you pretty much every kind of cloud computing engine that you could want. Anything from Amazon's own brand of Linux to Ubuntu, to Windows, yada yada yada, on and on and on. But for this, we're going to keep things simple. We're going to use Amazon's Linux 2 volume type. So go ahead and select this one. This is the very first one. Okay, step 2 is choosing a type of this instance, and it's going to give you a bunch of options again. It pre-selects the general purpose T2 Micro, which is free tier eligible. Unfortunately, for Docassemble to run the right way, you have to have enough memory to run everything, and it requires more than 1 GB of memory. We're going to be using general purpose T2 Medium 4, which gives us enough memory, but isn't an outrageous, monster of a cloud computing machine. So select that, and then go to Next, Configure Instance Details. This menu you don't really need to worry about, so just kind of read through it and add storage with the Next Add Storage button. So we're going to just increase the hard drive size of our instance to 29 gigabytes in this menu. And general purpose SSD is fine. Don't worry about provisioned or tags next. This is where you could add a tag to your instance, like a name of it. We can do this later, so we're not going to worry about it now. We're going to configure the security group next. So for this, we're going to create a new security group. A security group is a group of settings that say who and what can access your EC2 instance. For example, you obviously want to get into your EC2 instance and change things that are running on it or stop things that are running and things like that. You don't want someone that you don't know to be able to do the same thing. So we're going to make our settings restrictive so that we have some sort of guarantee that only the people that are supposed to can access the EC2 instance. So it automatically brings up the SSH type of connection. SSH is how you get into the actual command line of your EC2 instance. And we're going to be doing this in a little bit. But what it defaults to is this, the all zeros IP address, which is shorthand for letting anyone anywhere access your EC2 instance as long as they have the appropriate password or anything like that. We're going to change that, and we're going to put it at my IP address, and this automatically reads the IP address that you're using to access this. That way, if someone is outside your network, they won't be able to get onto your EC2 instance and mess things up. Keep in mind that if you're doing this from home or from a co-work space or from your office, setting this to just your IP now may prevent you from accessing your EC2 instance later when you need to. So whenever you need to, you can go back in and edit this and add new IP addresses, which is what I do. I have settings for my house, for my office, for co-working spaces that I use, but it still keeps it pretty restrictive. We're also going to want to let people access Docassemble from the internet. So to do that, we're going to add some rules here, and under type, we're going to go down to HTTP, which is port 80. That's how you access web pages, and leave it at all zeros, because that lets anyone from anywhere access the front end of your Docassemble instance. We're also going to add HTTPS to this as well, which is port 443. Okay, so everything looks pretty solid. We're going to review and launch. Okay, it's telling us, hey, it's not eligible for the free tier. That's fine, we knew that going in. So everything else looks okay. And some of these settings you can change later if you need to. So we're just going to hit launch. Okay, when we hit launch, it pops up a menu that says select an existing key pair or create a new key pair. A key pair is basically a verification file that you keep on your computer that lets you and only you, or anyone who has that key pair file, access the EC2 instance through SSH. In other words, only the people who have this key pair file can get into the actual computer that is running on AWS Cloud. This is different than people accessing it through the internet to use Docassemble. This is access to the administrative side, like the command line side. So we're going to create a new key pair, and we're going to name it my new key pair, and we're going to download it. Okay, you can see that it downloaded. Okay. On my computer, it tries to open it with its own protocol, but we're going to make sure that we have our key pair before proceeding. Okay? Because here's the thing, if you lose this key pair, you are SOL. So there it is, it's in my downloads folder. I'm going to go ahead and drag it to my desktop just to put it there. And that way I know where it is. So I've downloaded my key pair, I made sure I have it, and I'm going to hit launch instances. Alright, it takes it a couple of minutes to launch the instances. We're going to go back to our EC2 Dashboard. Just click on Services up there, and you can see what's going on. Okay, so here's our launching instance. You can see that it doesn't have a name yet, so let's go ahead and name it. Let's name it Bob. Oh, come on. So while we were waiting on Bob to initialize, I paused the recording, but now we are back on. So Bob has launched. You can see that he's running, and I've selected Bob, and you can see all of his details here. His IP address, public IP address, all of this cool stuff. But what we want to do is to connect to Bob using our terminal. Again, I'm on a Macintosh, so I'm using terminal. If you're on a Windows machine, you're going to be using PowerShell. If you're on Linux, you're going to be using Bash or terminal, something like that. So let's pull up our terminal, and you'll see, I'll show you real quick, I have put the key pair file in a directory called Bob. So we're going to change directories into the Bob directory, and then we're going to see, using ls, that our new key pair is in this directory. It's important to remember that you can only connect to your EC2 instance if you're in the folder where your key pair is living. If you try it in a different folder, it won't work because AWS is checking for that key pair and you're sending that information to the server. So just make sure that you're in that folder. And also, always make sure that you have a backup copy of your key pair file somewhere safe in case you delete it. So the way to get in, and I've saved this command so that you don't have to suffer through me typing it out. The way to get into your EC2 instance goes kind of like this. It's this command here. Sudo SSH is the type of connection, and then -I, quote, my new key pair .pem. That's the name of your key pair file in quotes. And then this part, EC2 user at, and then this web address. Okay. EC2 user is always going to be the same, and then at. And then the EC2 web address comes from right here, your public DNS. That's your DNS address for your EC2 instance. So I'm using sudo to connect as super user. Otherwise, it'll kick me out because it thinks that permissions are too open. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Okay, and we are into our EC2 instance. Got a nice little graphic up there. And basically, you are now on the command line of a computer running on AWS Cloud. So you can see there's nothing really there. It's just a computer running an operating system that is just running, not really doing anything useful as of yet. So we're going to start installing Docassemble on this computer. But first, we're going to need to run some updates and install the dependencies that Docassemble needs to run. So first, we're going to do everything as sudo. So type in sudo yum y update and hit enter. This is updating or looking for updates for the operating system that you're running. So just kind of let it do its thing. It takes it a little bit, hopefully not too long. All right, complete. Now we're going to need to install some dependencies. The biggest dependency that Docassemble uses to run, and the one we're going to be using, is Docker. So we're going to need to get Docker. So type in sudo apt-get y install Docker. Oh no, never mind. I forgot I'm using Amazon Linux, not Ubuntu. So we're going to be using yum, not apt-get. So sudo yum -y install Docker. Okay, so you have downloaded and installed Docker, which is what Docassemble uses to run on this instance. Now that you've installed Docker, I'm not sure if Docker is actually running on this machine or not. You can play around with it if you want. Let's see, yeah. Okay, Docker is there. So let's just do a Docker start to make sure that it's running. Okay, it seems to be running. Okay, so just to make sure, let's type in sudo service docker start. Okay, so we've started Docker running on our EC2 instance. And now we are ready to start running Docassemble. So we've gotten Docker running on our EC2 instance. And now let's go ahead and start running Docassemble. So we're going to need to do everything as sudo, which is super user. So type in sudo docker run d, which means run everything in the background, p 80, and then -p again, 443 443 h file slash Docassemble. Okay, so let's talk about what we just typed in. Sudo means you're doing everything as the super user. You're telling Docker to run something for you there, and the -d means run it in the background. -p means you want Docker to open up port 80. Do you remember when we were configuring the security groups for Bob, we opened up port 80 to everybody? That's the HTTP port. We also opened up port 443, so we're telling Docker, hey, we want you to run, and we also want you to expose these ports so that people can access them. And then at the end of everything, we have the name of the Docker container, which is jhpile, that's Jonathan Pyle, /Docassemble. Jonathan has basically put his main Docker container online for people to use for free. So what we're doing is we're downloading Docassemble from him and running it on our machine as a new instance of Docassemble. So once you've typed that in, go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see that it's doing some downloading from Jonathan Pyle's instance, and it's downloading Docassemble and getting ready to run it for us. This process takes some time. You can see that it's some pretty substantial files that it has to download. So just hang tight and wait on it to download, and I'll be back on the video as soon as it's up and running. While we were waiting on Docassemble to get up and running, I went and made myself a snack, but now I am back. You can see that all of the pulls are complete. It's downloaded everything, and it started running Docassemble for us. So let's go ahead and make sure that everything is running well. So type in docker ps on the command line. Oh, forgot sudo. Okay, and so when we typed in sudo docker ps, it's showing us the running container. And this kind of jumble of stuff here expands if you do this. And it looks like everything is up and running. You can see I checked it at 2 minutes, and now we're at 9 minutes. So everything should be up and running smoothly. So let's see if we can connect to it. So let's go back to our EC2 page on Amazon and check out Bob. And the public DNS address is the web address now for our Docker container. So let's go ahead and copy that and just open a new browser tab and put that in and see what happens. Okay, so congratulations. If you're seeing this, you are now running your own instance of Docassemble on your own cloud computing instance that you can now edit and control and start and stop and do whatever in the world you want to with it. You can see it defaulted to the demonstration interview. This isn't very useful because you want to actually do things with Docassemble. So what we're going to do is sign in and create our new account. So in every version of Docassemble that gets spun up, there's a default user that you use to log in with at first. And the email is admin@admin.com. And the password is password, all lowercase, P-A-S-S-W-O-R-D. And hit enter. And now it's going to want you to change your password. So your old password was password. And we're going to make our new password my awesome password 123. And then type it back in. Obviously you want to make a better password than that, but we'll use that for right now. Oh, they didn't match. Okay, I mistyped something. We'll just use my password 123. Okay, let's see if they match. And they did. Okay, so now you are inside the Docassemble web application as the administrator. Let's change our email address. Okay, so I'm going to change my first name from System to Sam. Pardon, I don't really need to worry about country codes or all this. Okay, save, and let's change my email address as well. To the Florida Justice Technology Center. Okay, so now that I am me, I want to go to the playground, which is where we develop our interviews to deploy on Docassemble.